In the cradle of civilization, where the first cities rose from desert dust, the Sumerians left behind mysteries that refuse to fade. Their tablets whisper of knowledge far beyond their age, skies mapped with impossible precision, rituals hinting at forces we still struggle to name, and artifacts that seem to challenge the limits of ancient ingenuity. As archaeologists sift through ruins older than history itself, the questions grow heavier. What did the Sumerians truly understand, and how did they learn it? Tonight, we step into the shadows of a world that science has yet to fully unravel. So settle in, and let's cross the threshold together. Nestled in the arid plains of ancient Mesopotamia, the city of Uruk once stood as one of the world's most powerful urban centers. Now, reduced to a silent expanse of crumbling brick and dust, Uruk's remnants continue to echo the grandeur of its past. Among its most enigmatic structures was the temple of Inanna, dedicated to the goddess who represented love, fertility, and war. But beneath the layers of historical fact, the temple's true significance remains shrouded in mystery. The temple itself was an architectural marvel, an imposing structure built of mud brick and stone, towering over the surrounding landscape. Its ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid, ascended toward the heavens like a symbol of mankind's attempt to reach the divine. Inanna, the goddess of the temple, was one of the most revered deities in the Sumerian pantheon. Her presence was thought to govern not only the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, but the very rhythms of human existence: love and strife, life and death. Yet, despite the temple's known purpose as a center of worship, much about it remains elusive. What we know comes primarily from the Inanna hymns, a series of poetic texts that detail the goddess's descent into the underworld and her return. These hymns speak of divine journeys between realms, of cycles that echo through both the physical and spiritual worlds. The temple, they suggest, was not just a place of offerings and prayer. It was a gateway, a nexus between the mortal and the divine. But what kind of gateway could this have been? Was it merely symbolic, a metaphor for the connection between the gods and humans, or could it have been something more tangible? Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of this sacred space, but much of its true function remains speculative. The Inanna precinct, as the temple complex was called, housed not only altars and shrines, but also large storage rooms filled with offerings, precious metals, foodstuffs, and intricate jewelry. Evidence suggests that Inanna's temple was a thriving center of both ritual and commerce. But the real question lies deeper. Was there more to these rituals than meets the eye? Inanna's myths contain strange and seemingly otherworldly elements. The goddess descends into the underworld in search of power and is subjected to a series of trials, emerging only after her death and resurrection. The parallels to other cultures' myths of underworld journeys are striking, and some scholars have suggested that these stories could have been inspired by actual, long-forgotten practices or phenomena. Could there have been rituals within the temple designed to invoke transcendence, direct communion with the divine, or something beyond human understanding? More than one historian has pondered whether the Temple of Inanna was a place where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms were intentionally blurred. The ziggurat, often seen as a simple religious monument, may have had a far more profound significance. The question arises: was the temple designed as a place to elevate the soul, a stepping stone toward another reality? Or was it a physical, architectural means to harness unseen energies, something beyond the limited scope of modern archaeology? One particularly intriguing aspect of the Temple of Inanna is its supposed connection to sacred prostitution, a controversial and debated practice in ancient Mesopotamia. Some scholars claim that one of the roles of the temple's priestesses was to engage in acts that symbolized the union of the divine with the mortal. This practice was said to embody the fertility of the land and the intimate relationship between humans and gods. But what if this practice was more than symbolic? Could there have been deeper, hidden layers of spiritual or cosmic significance that we can barely comprehend today? Adding to the mystery is the astronomical alignment of the temple. Like many other ancient structures, the Temple of Inanna was aligned with the stars and celestial events. The Sumerians were not only adept at farming and governance, they were keen astronomers, mapping the skies with astonishing precision. The location and design of Inanna's temple seem to reflect an understanding of the cosmos that we can only begin to appreciate. Could the temple have been a site for observing celestial phenomena, perhaps even harnessing cosmic forces? And if so, how far did their understanding of the stars and their alignment with divine power extend? Scholars continue to debate whether these astronomical practices were mere superstition or if they represented a form of ancient science lost to the ages. Some suggest that the Sumerians, perhaps through ritual or mathematical precision, may have been attuned to energies or patterns in the universe that modern science is only beginning to explore. Could the temple have been a site for some kind of ancient astrophysical experimentation? An attempt to bridge the natural and supernatural worlds? More troubling questions linger in the shadows of the Temple of Inanna's mysteries. The Sumerians, with their advanced knowledge and deeply spiritual worldview, may have possessed secrets that were never meant to be understood, or perhaps they are waiting to be uncovered in a way we are not yet capable of. What was the true nature of the rituals performed within the temple's walls? Was there a deeper understanding of life, death, and rebirth hidden in these sacred ceremonies, knowledge too advanced or too dangerous for later generations? As excavations continue and new discoveries emerge from the dust, the Temple of Inanna remains an enigmatic testament to the mysteries of ancient Sumer. What lies beneath the remnants of stone and earth? What wisdom has been lost to time, and what secrets might still be waiting to be unlocked? Could the Temple of Inanna be more than just a relic of religious history? It might be a portal, not just to the gods, but to a deeper understanding of the world itself. And as we ponder these questions, one thing is certain: the mystery of Inanna's temple, like the goddess herself, refuses to be fully revealed. As we continue our journey through the forgotten corridors of ancient Sumer, we come across a symbol that reappears time and again in the sacred art and architecture of this early civilization: the Tree of Life. Carved into stone, painted onto pottery, and even etched onto the ancient seals of kings, this image of an intricate, often fantastical tree holding great significance within Sumerian culture. Yet its deeper meaning remains a subject of much debate. The Tree of Life itself, at first glance, appears to be a simple depiction of a tree, its trunk rising toward the heavens, its branches sprawling outward in a graceful, almost symmetrical arrangement. But to dismiss it as a mere decorative motif would be to overlook the profound mystery it carries. This symbol, seen in the art of Uruk, Nippur, and beyond, is not just an organic image, but a conduit for understanding the Sumerians' complex relationship with the divine and the cosmos. On one level, the Tree of Life is understood as a symbol of fertility and sustenance, a reflection of the agricultural cycle that defined the Sumerian way of life. In a land where water was scarce and the bounty of the harvest was a direct gift from the gods, the tree's symbolism as a provider of life makes perfect sense. It is also intimately connected to Inanna, the goddess of love, fertility, and war, whose temple we just explored, indicating that this symbol may have been linked to her divine attributes, representing her power over life, growth, and decay. But there is more to this tree than meets the eye. The Tree of Life also appears as part of a larger cosmic framework in Sumerian thought. It is often shown flanked by two divine figures, sometimes gods or priests, who stand beside it with hands raised in reverence or guidance. These figures, it seems, are not merely worshipping the tree, they are interacting with it. Some depictions suggest they are watering it, nurturing its growth, or even drawing from its branches as if partaking in its life-giving power. What were they drawing from it? Was it divine knowledge, spiritual energy, or something more? In some interpretations, the Tree of Life represents the axis of the world, connecting the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. This axis mundi, a concept seen in many ancient cultures, is a kind of cosmic ladder or pillar that holds the fabric of the universe together. The Sumerians, with their intricate cosmology, may have seen the tree as a bridge between realms, a symbolic axis that allowed the gods to interact with humanity, and humanity to transcend the earthly plane. However, the mystery deepens when we consider the shape of the tree itself. Unlike the typical leafy trees we might picture in a natural world, the Sumerian tree often features stylized branches that are either geometric or spiraling in intricate patterns. It is more of a symbolic structure than a literal representation of nature. This abstraction invites speculation about the tree's true purpose. Could it represent something more complex than a simple plant? Could it be a representation of cosmic energies or celestial forces, an intricate map of the universe, or perhaps a diagram of some deeper metaphysical reality? In Sumerian cosmology, life and death were not seen as polar opposites, but as part of an eternal cycle. The tree, with its life-giving branches, could also signify death and rebirth, a constant renewal of the cycle of existence. But why was this symbol so important that it appeared across various forms of Sumerian iconography, from cylinder seals to monumental statues, to the very walls of temples? Some researchers suggest that the Tree of Life may have been a representation of divine knowledge or hidden wisdom, an ancient, perhaps even otherworldly source of power that only a select few could truly understand. Inanna herself, in her journey to the underworld, is often associated with themes of death and resurrection. Could this tree be an emblem of her domain, a symbol not only of earthly life but of the transcendence of the soul? Was the tree, in some sense, a physical manifestation of the divine knowledge she possessed? Or was it, perhaps, a conduit through which the high priests and priestesses could access that very knowledge during their sacred rituals? The most mysterious element of the Tree of Life is its link to other ancient cultures. From the Tree of Knowledge in the Bible's Garden of Eden to the World Tree of the Norse and the ancient Egyptians' Tree of Life, similar symbols appear across the world's early civilizations, suggesting that the idea of a sacred tree, central to the understanding of life, death, and divinity, was a shared concept. What was it about this symbol that resonated so strongly with ancient people across time and space? Could the Tree of Life have represented more than just a religious metaphor? Was there a deeper, possibly esoteric meaning that transcended cultures, a universal symbol tied to the very fabric of reality itself? One theory posits that the Tree of Life, with its symmetrical design and connection to divine figures, may have encoded mathematical or astronomical knowledge that the Sumerians, much like other ancient civilizations, used to track celestial movements and predict cosmic events. Could the branches of the tree represent the various constellations, with the trunk serving as a symbolic connection between the stars and the earth? Was the tree itself a kind of celestial map, designed to align with the stars in a way that we have yet to fully understand? Others have speculated that the tree could have had an alchemical or even metaphysical significance, in the same way that later traditions of alchemy would see the tree as a symbol of transformation, spiritual or physical. Could the Sumerians have imbued their Tree of Life with the ability to facilitate spiritual evolution? Was this a sacred image meant to guide the soul through various stages of enlightenment, or perhaps a marker for a journey through different planes of existence? Despite extensive research, much about the Tree of Life remains unresolved. The Sumerian world was one filled with symbols that conveyed not just religion, but an understanding of the universe's deeper workings. Yet, The true nature of the Tree of Life continues to elude us. Was it a symbol of divine truth, a cosmic key to understanding the very essence of life, death, and the afterlife? Or was it something even more profound, something whose significance we may still be only beginning to grasp? What if the Tree of Life was not merely a symbol of fertility or divine knowledge, but a living, breathing element of a far larger, hidden cosmic order, one that we have yet to uncover? The Sumerians have long since disappeared, but the enigmatic symbols they left behind, like the Tree of Life, remain to challenge us, to urge us to look deeper, to question what we think we know about the world around us. What if the answers are out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered? Amidst the ruins of ancient Lagash, a city once home to powerful kings and rich cultural heritage, one artifact stands out: a statue of Gudea, the ruler of Lagash during the late 3rd millennium BCE. This statue, now housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris, is not only an exquisite work of art, but a silent enigma, holding secrets that historians, archaeologists, and even modern scientists are still struggling to fully comprehend. Standing at just over a meter tall, the Statue of Gudea is a marvel of craftsmanship. Carved from diorite, a dense and remarkably hard stone, the figure depicts the king seated with his hands resting gently on his knees, gazing outward with a solemn expression. The simplicity of his pose, coupled with the intense serenity on his face, imbues the statue with an aura of quiet power and dignity. Yet, as serene as it may appear, there is an undeniable sense that this statue is hiding something far beyond mere representation. The inscriptions that accompany the statue are no less intriguing. On the base of the statue, a long inscription in cuneiform recounts the deeds of Gudea, describing how he rebuilt temples and restored the city of Lagash to greatness after a period of decline. These texts are, in many ways, a celebration of his leadership, emphasizing the king's divine right to rule and his connection to the gods. The king's calm expression, his posture of authority, and the weight of the stone beneath him all speak to his status as both a leader and a servant of the divine. But the mystery lies not in what is said, but in what is unsaid, what is left hidden beneath the surface of the statue's stoic form. To understand the significance of this statue, we must first ask, why did Gudea, a ruler whose reign was largely marked by peace and prosperity, choose to commission such a large and elaborate statue of himself? And what do the unusual features of the statue reveal about the ancient Sumerian worldview? And possibly something more? First, let's consider the material itself. Diorite, the stone from which the statue is carved, is an incredibly hard and difficult material to work with. While Sumerians were skilled in stonework, diorite was rare and extremely difficult to carve with the tools available at the time. The level of detail achieved in the statue is astonishing, suggesting a knowledge of both craftsmanship and engineering that is still difficult to fully understand. How, with such primitive tools, could the ancient Sumerians have managed to carve such intricate details with the precision that we see in the statue of Gudea? Was this a symbol of the king's divine connection to the gods, who perhaps guided the hands of the artisans? Or is it possible that the methods used to carve the statue were more advanced than we realize, hinting at knowledge or techniques lost to time? Adding to the mystery is the way Gudea is depicted. The king's body is often shown wearing a long robe that wraps around his torso, and his head is crowned with a hat or diadem. His eyes, though large and almond-shaped, do not seem entirely natural. They are, in fact, slightly disproportionate to the rest of his face, with a gaze that seems unnervingly penetrating, as though the figure is aware of something beyond the material world. Could these large eyes be symbolic of a deeper vision, a form of insight granted to Gudea by the gods? In the religious traditions of Sumer, the eyes often represented the ability to see beyond the veil of the physical world, to understand divine will or cosmic forces that others could not perceive. Could the Statue of Gudea, in its symbolic depiction of the ruler, be conveying a connection to a higher, more hidden realm of knowledge? Even more puzzling is the inscription on the statue's base. While the text clearly speaks of Gudea's devotion to the gods and his rebuilding of Lagash, there are mentions of divine assistance that seem almost otherworldly. The king speaks of receiving guidance from the god Ningirsu, who is said to have given him a vision or dream that led to the rebuilding of the temple. What is most striking about these passages is the way Gudea's actions are framed. They suggest a ruler who was not merely a mortal king, but a vessel for divine power, one who was guided by forces beyond his control. Could it be that the king's reign was not only marked by political achievements, but by access to a form of knowledge or power that was not of this world? And then there is the question of Gudea's unblinking stare. It is almost as if the statue is not just a representation of the king, but a doorway to something else. Many ancient cultures, including the Sumerians, believed that statues and idols could house the spirits of the gods, allowing those who looked upon them to communicate with the divine. Could the Statue of Gudea have served a similar purpose as a conduit for the king's spiritual power, or even as a means for the people to access hidden knowledge? What if the statue itself was more than just an object of veneration, but a tool, an instrument for unlocking the mysteries of the cosmos or communicating with higher powers? The stone from which Gudea's statue is made, the diorite, also adds another layer to this puzzle. Diorite was not just rare, it was considered almost indestructible. Its durability made it a stone of choice for sacred objects, for things that were meant to endure for eternity. The choice of such an enduring material might suggest that Gudea himself, in commissioning this statue, wished to align himself with the eternal, both in the literal sense of lasting through time and in the more abstract sense of a spiritual immortality. Was this a king who sought not only to immortalize his earthly achievements, but to tap into something eternal, something that transcended the mortal realm? There are those who speculate that Gudea's statue, with its otherworldly features and its precise, almost otherworldly construction, may point to something far more ancient and mysterious. Could Gudea have been in possession of hidden knowledge, an ancient science perhaps, or an understanding of the cosmos, that allowed him to commission such a statue? Some have even proposed that Gudea's reign may have been marked by a lost form of wisdom that predated even the Sumerians, passed down through a much older civilization. Could this wisdom have been imparted to him in dreams or visions, as suggested in the inscriptions? Despite centuries of study, the true purpose and meaning of Gudea's statue remain elusive. Was it simply a tribute to a powerful king, or was it a means of connecting with the divine? Could it have been an instrument for spiritual communication, or perhaps a symbol of a higher understanding that the Sumerians possessed, an understanding that modern science still cannot fully explain? The Statue of Gudea stands as a silent testament to an age long past, yet it raises more questions than answers. What if the truth behind this artifact lies not in the king's reign, but in the hidden knowledge that it may contain, knowledge that remains locked away, waiting to be rediscovered? Beneath the dark skies of ancient Mesopotamia, where the endless expanse of stars glittered over the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians gazed upward, and what they saw was not merely a scattering of distant lights, but a cosmic order that shaped their understanding of the universe. In the cities of Uruk, Ur, and Nippur, the Sumerians began to chart the heavens with an astonishing degree of accuracy, thousands of years before modern telescopes or sophisticated instruments were ever imagined. Imagine standing in the open plains of Sumer, long before the hum of cities or the blaze of electric lights. The night is quiet, the only sounds the rustling of reeds in the wind. Above, The stars stretch endlessly, and there is no escape from the grandeur of the cosmos. For the Sumerians, this was not a scene of mere beauty or wonder. It was a vast celestial tapestry, woven with meaning and power. Each star, each constellation, was a symbol, a deity, a harbinger of fate. And to understand this cosmic map was to understand the will of the gods themselves. The Sumerians did not have telescopes, computers, or even accurate clocks, yet they somehow managed to chart the movements of the stars, planets, and constellations with remarkable precision. Evidence of their astronomical prowess comes from a variety of sources: ancient cuneiform texts, clay tablets, and the ruins of temples aligned to the heavens. But the most striking evidence lies in the constellations themselves, the very patterns that the Sumerians identified and named. One of the key accomplishments of Sumerian astronomy was their identification of the zodiac. The 12 signs we recognize today as the zodiac were, in fact, born from Sumerian astronomical observations. These signs, which we still use in modern astrology, were based on the stars and constellations that appeared in the night sky over the course of a year. But how did they arrive at such an intricate system? Without the benefit of advanced mathematics or scientific tools, what allowed the Sumerians to discern these celestial patterns with such clarity? It's important to note that the Sumerians were not simply observing the stars for the sake of curiosity. Their astronomy was deeply intertwined with their religious beliefs. The heavens were seen as a divine realm, and the movements of the planets and stars were interpreted as messages from the gods. Temples were aligned with specific stars and constellations, and priests and priestesses would observe celestial events to predict everything from harvest cycles to the outcomes of military campaigns. The constellations themselves were considered to be living, breathing gods, their movements reflecting the will of the divine. What's most extraordinary is the way the Sumerians recorded these celestial observations. Using simple yet effective methods, they developed a form of astronomical mathematics that allowed them to predict the positions of the stars, planets, and even the path of the moon. They kept detailed records of the heliacal rising and setting of stars, when a star first becomes visible just before dawn or disappears at sunset. This was no simple exercise in tracking the seasons. The Sumerians were documenting and predicting cosmic events with a precision that would not be surpassed for millennia. Some cuneiform tablets, such as the Mul-Apen tablets, provide us with detailed star catalogs and lists of constellations, showing the Sumerians' sophisticated understanding of the night sky. These tablets show that the Sumerians not only recognized a number of constellations, many of which we still use today, but they also understood the cyclical nature of celestial events. The importance of these observations cannot be overstated. The Sumerians saw themselves as part of a larger cosmic order, and to align their actions with the stars was to align themselves with the divine. Yet, the mystery of Sumerian astronomy goes deeper. How did they possess such profound knowledge of the heavens so long ago? Some scholars believe that the Sumerians developed their astronomical knowledge through careful observation and trial and error over generations, as they recorded the patterns of the stars and planets. But could there have been more to it than this? Was there some kind of lost wisdom passed down from earlier civilizations, perhaps even from an advanced culture that predated the Sumerians themselves? The accuracy of their astronomical charts raises unsettling questions. For instance, the Sumerians were able to track the movement of the planets with remarkable precision. They even noted the retrograde motion of planets like Venus and Mars, which can only be observed through detailed tracking of their movements. How could they have understood such phenomena, which are not immediately visible to the naked eye? Venus, for example, moves in a way that is difficult to follow with the unaided eye. Its motion is subtle and unpredictable. Yet the Sumerians were able to record its cycles over many years, with accuracy. Some have speculated that the Sumerians may have had access to knowledge that was far beyond the reach of ordinary observation. Could they have had tools or methods that we don't know about today, tools that have since been lost to time? Or could they have been guided by knowledge passed down from an even older civilization, one that had a much deeper understanding of the cosmos? This theory is supported by certain alignments in Sumerian temples that seem to indicate a sophisticated awareness of both the stars and the Earth's movements. The great Ziggurat of Ur, for example, is believed to have been aligned with the constellation of the Bull, Taurus, at certain times of the year. The alignment of this and other Sumerian structures with celestial bodies suggests that they were deliberately constructed to mirror cosmic patterns. The very architecture of Sumerian cities seemed to echo the heavens, suggesting that the Sumerians were not only observing the stars, but actively attempting to align their world with the cosmos. But the mystery doesn't end there. The Sumerians were also able to predict lunar eclipses with surprising accuracy. How did they manage this feat, given the lack of scientific instruments? Some theorists suggest that the Sumerians may have used a form of lunar solar theory, a method of correlating the movements of the sun and moon to predict eclipses based on long-term cycles. Others suggest that they had access to a kind of esoteric knowledge passed down by an unknown source that allowed them to anticipate these events. Could it be that the Sumerians, with their profound knowledge of the stars, were tapping into something more than mere observation? Some have even speculated that their knowledge of astronomy was connected to a broader system of mystical or spiritual teachings. Was their ability to map the stars tied to a form of divine revelation? Or did they have access to ancient, forgotten knowledge that allowed them to harness the secrets of the heavens in ways that we are only beginning to understand? As we continue to explore the mysteries of ancient Sumerian astronomy, we are faced with a tantalizing question. How could a civilization so ancient, with no telescopes, no advanced technology, and no modern understanding of the cosmos, possess such an intricate and accurate knowledge of the stars and planets? The answers remain elusive, but the more we uncover, the more we realize that the Sumerians were not merely stargazers. They were cosmic philosophers, drawing connections between the movements of the heavens and the forces that governed their world. And perhaps, in their celestial wisdom, they knew something we have yet to grasp. In the heart of ancient Sumer, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the city of Nippur stood as one of the most important and mysterious centers of religious life in the ancient world. While many cities of Sumer were bustling metropolises of commerce and governance, Nippur was unique in its singular devotion to the gods. It was here that the religious complex, dedicated to the chief god Enlil, towered over the landscape, a focal point of spiritual and political power that remained unparalleled in its time. Imagine the vastness of Nippur in its prime, a city filled with monumental structures, priests, and sacred rituals, its walls echoing with the prayers of a population dedicated to the will of the divine. The most striking feature of the city was its great religious complex, which included the Ikur, the temple dedicated to Enlil, god of air and storms, and one of the most revered deities in the Sumerian pantheon. The Ikur was not just a temple, it was a cosmic center, the embodiment of divine order on earth. To enter its walls was to step into a space where the physical and spiritual realms converged, where the very fabric of the universe seemed to pulse with divine energy. The temple complex was awe-inspiring in scale, with ziggurats, courtyards, and chambers designed to honor Enlil and facilitate his communication with the mortal realm. The ziggurat itself, a towering pyramid-like structure, rose high above the city, its terraces a representation of the heavens and the earth. As the priests ascended the steps, it was as if they were moving through the layers of existence, from the human world to the divine, crossing a threshold where communication with the gods was not only possible, but expected. This ritualistic journey to the top of the Ziggurat is just one example of the religious practices that defined Nippur. But beyond the known rituals and ceremonies, there are deep mysteries surrounding this sacred space, mysteries that have only begun to be uncovered by modern archaeology. What was the true purpose of Nippur's religious complex? What deeper, perhaps hidden, knowledge did the Sumerians believe they could access through their worship of Enlil and their devotion to this celestial space? Could there have been more to this city and its sacred center than simply a place of religious observance? The religious significance of Nippur extended far beyond its walls. It was a city of divine authority, and its temple complex was a symbolic gateway between heaven and earth. Unlike other Sumerian cities, Nippur was not a political or military power center. Instead, it held unparalleled religious influence. It was considered the spiritual heart of Sumer, and it is believed that Sumerian kings, including those from cities like Ur and Lagash, made pilgrimages to Nippur to receive divine sanction for their rule. The city was not just a place of worship, it was the very center of divine governance. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Nippur religious complex is its connections to the celestial bodies. Like many other Sumerian structures, the Temple of Enlil was carefully aligned with the stars. The Sumerians were keen astronomers, and it's likely that the placement of their temples was no accident. Could Nippur's complex have been designed with the stars in mind, aligning itself with celestial phenomena to channel divine power? Some researchers have speculated that the Ikur was built to align with certain stellar constellations or planetary movements, suggesting that the temple's rituals were tied to cosmic events that may have been seen as a reflection of divine will. In the temple's heart, the statue of Enlil would have been the focus of daily rituals, but was there more to this image of the god than simply devotion? Some suggest that the very act of bringing the god's representation to life through ritual might have imbued the statue with an energy that could influence events in the world below. What if the statue was not just a symbol, but a physical conduit to the divine, a kind of energy center, radiating cosmic power, a direct link between the mortal and the divine? Did the priests at Nippur harness such power during their ceremonies, perhaps even unknowingly? Beyond the tangible elements of the temple, there were also the sacred texts and writings of Nippur, which give us insight into the spiritual practices of the city. Many of the most important Sumerian hymns, prayers, and mythological texts were composed in Nippur, and it is likely that the city's scribes and priests held a deep understanding of sacred knowledge, perhaps even knowledge that was intended to remain hidden from the common people. Some have speculated that these texts contained not only religious teachings, but also esoteric wisdom, knowledge about the nature of the universe, hidden in plain sight. Were these texts a roadmap to understanding the divine order of the cosmos, or were they meant to preserve ancient knowledge passed down through generations? Perhaps the greatest mystery of Nippur lies in its enduring significance. While other Sumerian cities rose and fell with the ebb and flow of history, Nippur retained its importance for over a millennium. The religious complex remained in use even as other aspects of Sumerian civilization changed. What was it about Nippur, and specifically the Ekur, that allowed it to remain a center of power for so long? Was it simply the strength of its religious influence, or was there something more profound at play? Could the city have been a center of hidden knowledge, a place where spiritual practices and astronomical observations converged in a way that provided the Sumerians with access to knowledge or power beyond their time? There are also questions about the ritual practices that took place in Nippur's sacred space. The temple was a place of divine connection, but it was also a site for political ritual. Kings would come to the temple to seek divine approval for their reigns, a practice that suggests the temple was not just a spiritual space but also a center of political legitimacy. What kind of rituals were performed within the sacred walls of the Eker? Did they involve direct communication with the gods, or were they meant to preserve the divine order of the cosmos? And what secrets might lie hidden within the rituals of the high priests, rituals that remain lost to time? Some scholars have suggested that Nippur's religious practices were deeply tied to ancient forms of knowledge, possibly even science or technology that has long since been forgotten. Could it be that the priests of Nippur possessed a deeper understanding of the natural world, of energy, or of cosmic forces that we are only beginning to uncover? Were their rituals designed to tap into these forces, aligning with the stars, or harnessing the power of the earth in ways that modern science cannot yet explain? Nippur's religious complex stands as a testament to a civilization that sought to understand the universe and its place within it. The mysteries of the city's sacred space are still with us, unsolved and beckoning for further exploration. Was Nippur truly just a place of worship, or was it a center of hidden knowledge, a key to understanding forces beyond our current grasp? And perhaps, in the ruins of the Ekur and the forgotten texts of the priests, there are answers waiting to be discovered, answers that may yet reveal the deeper mysteries of the Sumerians' profound connection to the cosmos. In the dusty ruins of ancient Shuruppak, one of Sumer's oldest cities, an astonishing discovery was made. A collection of clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform script, each bearing a cryptic set of instructions that seem to blur the lines between religious wisdom, myth, and what we might call forbidden knowledge. These tablets, known collectively as the Shuruppak tablets, have been the subject of intrigue and debate for over a century. Though their full meaning remains elusive, they contain what may be some of the most puzzling and cryptic texts ever found from the ancient world. Shuruppak, located near the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, was a city of great importance in Sumerian history. It is said to be the home of the legendary king Ziusudra, who, in later Akkadian and Babylonian traditions, is equivalent to Noah of the Bible. But beyond its mythological connections, Shuruppak also holds a key to understanding the more enigmatic side of Sumerian civilization, their views on knowledge, the gods, and the hidden forces that shaped their world. The Shuruppak tablets themselves are a collection of legal, moral, and instructional texts, but they are far from ordinary. Among these tablets, scholars have uncovered a series of writings that delve into subjects far beyond everyday matters. Some are devoted to laws and decrees, while others seem to touch on the occult, on esoteric practices that may have been considered too dangerous or too sacred for the general population. The existence of these forbidden texts raises immediate questions. What kind of knowledge did the Sumerians possess? And why would these texts, which seem to touch on cosmic forces and divine secrets, have been hidden away in the first place? One of the most mysterious aspects of the Shuruppak tablets is their content. While much of the writing revolves around standard legal matters, contracts, land ownership, and the like, there are also references to rituals and practices that suggest a deeper understanding of the forces at work in the universe. Some of these writings refer to divine beings and the power they wield over the natural world. But more intriguing are the references to forbidden knowledge, teachings that seem to bridge the gap between divine wisdom and arcane practices. The tablets are filled with allusions to spiritual powers that are not clearly defined, powers that might lie outside the control of the gods themselves. One of the most famous tablets from Shuruppak contains a series of moral teachings, instructions on how to live a righteous life. Yet, buried within these teachings is a reference to a mysterious divine council, an assembly of gods who govern not just the heavens, but the very fabric of existence itself. According to the text, this council had access to forbidden knowledge, wisdom that allowed them to manipulate the forces of nature in ways that were beyond human understanding. Was this knowledge hidden away by the gods themselves? Or was it a legacy passed down through ancient, forgotten traditions? The most enigmatic element of the Shuruppak tablets is the suggestion that some of this knowledge was meant to be kept secret, accessible only to an elite few. One tablet speaks of a hidden language, a form of communication with the divine that could not be deciphered by ordinary people. Was this language a code or a system of symbols used to convey the esoteric teachings of the gods? If so, how did the Sumerians, who were already advanced in their writing systems, come to possess such a complex and cryptic form of communication? It is in the reference to hidden language that the Shuruppak tablets begin to take on an even darker, more mysterious tone. The idea that the Sumerians might have been in possession of a secret means of communication with the divine opens up an entirely new realm of speculation. Could this language have been a form of sacred geometry, a kind of universal code that transcended spoken words? Could the very structure of the tablets themselves hold clues to this forbidden knowledge, encoded within the lines of cuneiform text, waiting for modern scholars to decipher? Adding to the mystery is the fact that these tablets are believed to have been written during a time of great upheaval in Sumer. Some experts speculate that they were created in the wake of a series of natural disasters or political turmoil, and that the knowledge contained within them was a form of survival, an attempt to preserve wisdom that could help Sumerians navigate the challenges of a rapidly changing world. But what kind of wisdom could this have been? Was it a deeper understanding of the natural world, one that was meant to guide the Sumerians through catastrophe? Or was it something more metaphysical, a form of knowledge that could alter the very course of history? The presence of such knowledge in the Shuruppak tablets has led some to speculate that the Sumerians were in possession of advanced scientific or spiritual knowledge that has since been lost to time. How, for example, did they possess such an intricate understanding of natural forces like water, weather, and astronomy? Could the Sumerians have known about the planetary cycles or the movement of the stars long before they had the tools to measure them? And if so, how was this knowledge passed down? Was it hidden in plain sight, concealed within the allegories and symbols of the texts? There is also the intriguing possibility that the Shuruppak tablets contain fragments of an ancient wisdom that may predate the Sumerians themselves. Some fringe theories suggest that the tablets could contain remnants of a much older, lost civilization, one whose knowledge was passed down through Sumerian priests or scholars who sought to preserve this ancient understanding. This lost civilization could have been one that possessed knowledge far beyond what we traditionally associate with the early Bronze Age, a civilization that had discovered ways to harness the forces of nature or even communicate with otherworldly beings. Could the Shuruppak tablets be a glimpse into an ancient, forgotten world? A world where knowledge was not simply a tool for survival, but a means of transcending the limitations of human existence, where the veil between the material and spiritual realms was thinner, and where the gods themselves may have walked among mortals. As we continue to explore the mysteries surrounding the Shuruppak tablets, one thing becomes clear. The knowledge contained within them is not easily understood and may not be intended for public consumption. The tablets speak of forces far beyond the understanding of ordinary people, forces that seem to straddle the line between the divine and the forbidden. And as we attempt to piece together the fragments of this ancient puzzle, we are left with a chilling question. What if the wisdom contained within these texts was too powerful, too dangerous, to ever be fully revealed? Could the Shuruppak tablets hold the key to a forgotten truth, one that was never meant to be known by the rest of humanity? Or are they simply a relic of an ancient people, preserving their beliefs in the face of a world that was about to change forever? As with so many of the great mysteries of Sumer, the answers remain just out of reach. But perhaps, in the quiet corners of history, these ancient tablets still hold the secrets to a knowledge that we are only beginning to understand. In the shadow of the ancient Ziggurat of Ur, where the ruins of an ancient city still whisper the stories of kings and priests, one of the most significant legal texts in human history was born, the Code of Ur-Nammu. This code, written around 2100 BCE, predates the famous Code of Hammurabi by several centuries, and it is often regarded as one of the earliest examples of written law. But beyond its role as a legal document, the Code of Ur-Nammu is also a mysterious artifact that raises questions about the Sumerians' views on justice, power, and the divine forces that governed their world. Ur, the capital of the Sumerian Empire under the rule of Ur-Nammu, was a city of great splendor and influence. Towering above the bustling streets was the massive Ziggurat, a sacred structure dedicated to the moon god Nanna, whose temple stood as a symbol of divine authority. It was here, in this city of great wealth and power, that Ur-Nammu set about creating a legal code that would shape not only his dynasty, but also the future of Mesopotamian law. The Code of Ur-Nammu is known to us through fragments of tablets and inscriptions, some of which have been recovered from the ruins of Ur. The text itself is relatively simple by modern standards, a list of laws written in Sumerian cuneiform that govern a wide range of matters: criminal offenses, family law, trade, and property rights. What makes this code stand out, however, is its approach to justice. Unlike the earlier, more arbitrary forms of law that existed before Ur-Nammu's reign, his code sought to introduce a system of proportionality, laws that assigned specific punishments to specific crimes, establishing a clear sense of order and fairness. But the Code of Ur-Nammu is not just a straightforward legal document. It is also imbued with elements that suggest a deeper, more mysterious purpose. The code begins with a proclamation of Ur-Nammu's divine authority, positioning the king as the chosen representative of the gods. When Ur-Nammu, the king, chose to rule, it was through the will of the gods that he did so. This invocation of divine sanction is not unusual for ancient rulers, but what is striking here is the way it ties the very concept of law to the divine realm. Was Ur-Nammu's law simply a human construct, or did it serve as a channel for something far greater, an attempt to impose divine order on a chaotic world? The text is also remarkable in its references to a more mystical, perhaps even metaphysical, view of justice. The laws themselves are often framed in terms that suggest a balance between cosmic forces and human actions. If a man destroys the eye of another man, his eye shall be destroyed. Such laws, though seemingly straightforward, can be seen as reflecting a deeper understanding of cosmic retribution, an echo of the idea that every action in the human realm has a corresponding consequence in the divine realm. The very structure of the code, in which laws and punishments are meticulously balanced, seems to hint at a broader cosmic order, one that is in harmony with the physical world. Yet, the deeper implications of this code remain largely unexplored. Was Ur-Nammu's law simply a product of his rule, an attempt to bring order to a growing city-state? Or was it part of a much older tradition of cosmic law that predates him? Some scholars have speculated that Ur-Nammu's code may have drawn upon older, lost knowledge, an ancient understanding of justice that transcended the confines of the Sumerian state. Could it be that the Sumerians, with their intricate relationship to the divine and the cosmic, were tapping into a form of wisdom that we can barely begin to comprehend? And if so, what was the source of this knowledge? One of the most intriguing aspects of the Code of Ur-Nammu is its approach to the role of the gods in human affairs. While many of the Sumerian gods were seen as capricious and unpredictable, Ur-Nammu's laws present a picture of the gods as guardians of order, justice, and moral balance. The king, as their earthly representative, is tasked with upholding this divine order. But what if the laws themselves were not just a reflection of Ur-Nammu's political ambitions, but a means of channeling the will of the gods into the very fabric of society? Could the Code of Ur-Nammu be more than a legal text? Could it be a kind of divine instruction manual written to ensure that humanity remained in harmony with higher cosmic principles? Further complicating this mystery is the Code's emphasis on fairness and proportionality. Unlike the Code of Hammurabi, which is often viewed as harsh and punitive, the Code of Ur-Nammu shows a more tempered approach. For instance, if a person were found guilty of theft, their punishment was not always death, but rather a fine or restitution, an approach that seeks to restore balance rather than exact revenge. This idea of proportional justice is something that resonates deeply with the concept of cosmic balance. Was Ur-Nammu's law simply a political innovation, or was it an attempt to mirror a deeper, universal principle of equilibrium that governed both human and divine realms? Some researchers have also raised the possibility that the Code of Ur-Nammu was not solely a local Sumerian creation, but a part of a broader, ancient tradition of law that may have spanned many cultures of the ancient Near East. The concept of a divine, balanced legal code can be found in other ancient cultures, and some suggest that Ur-Nammu's code may have been influenced by an even older, lost tradition of law, one that had its roots in the ancient mythologies and rituals of earlier civilizations. Could Ur-Nammu have been tapping into a much older and more universal system of cosmic law, passed down through generations but now lost to time? There is also the question of the Code of Ur-Nammu's legacy. While it may have been overshadowed by the more famous Code of Hammurabi, the earlier code remains a crucial step in the evolution of legal systems. Its principles of fairness, restitution, and proportionality were groundbreaking for their time. But could there be even more significance to its place in history than we realize? Was it simply an early attempt to govern a city-state, or did it lay the groundwork for a much larger, more complex system of cosmic justice that influenced the development of laws in cultures across the ancient world? As we continue to explore the mysteries of Ur-Nammu and his famous code, we are left with more questions than answers. Was the Code of Ur-Nammu merely a product of its time, or does it point to a deeper, more ancient understanding of justice, one that transcends the human realm? And if Ur-Nammu was indeed channeling divine order through his laws, what does that tell us about the ancient Sumerians' relationship to the gods and the cosmos? The Code of Ur-Nammu may have been the first written law in human history, but the mysteries it contains reach far beyond the political and legal sphere, inviting us to wonder about the hidden knowledge and cosmic truths that may have shaped not only Sumer, but all of human civilization. In the heart of the ancient city of Ur, long buried beneath the sands of time, stands one of the most remarkable and enigmatic structures of the Sumerian world, the great temple of Nanna. Dedicated to Nanna, the moon god, this vast temple complex was not just a place of worship, but a symbol of the city's power, spiritual significance, and its connection to the divine. Yet, even now, thousands of years after its construction, the great temple remains an enduring mystery. Its purpose, its cosmic alignments, and its role in the spiritual lives of the Sumerians still leave us with more questions than answers. Ur, once a thriving metropolis of more than 100,000 people, was home to the majestic Ziggurat of Nanna, an imposing step pyramid that rose above the city like a bridge between heaven and earth. The Ziggurat, with its towering terraces, was the focal point of the temple, the symbolic center where the earthly and celestial realms converged. At the top of the Ziggurat, the priest-king of Ur would ascend to commune with Nanna, or perhaps to receive divine messages, as was the custom in many ancient cultures. But what did it truly mean to approach the gods at the summit of the Ziggurat? Was it simply a ritual act, or could it have been a metaphysical journey, one in which the very architecture of the temple served as a conduit for divine communication? The great temple of Nanna is an architectural marvel. Its design is both grand and precise, reflecting the Sumerians' understanding of cosmic principles. The ziggurat itself, a massive structure of mud, brick, and stone, was originally 3 stories high, and it was dedicated to Nanna, the moon god who governed the night sky. The moon was central to Sumerian cosmology, and Nanna was considered one of the most important deities in the pantheon. He was the god who regulated time, determining the cycles of the months and the seasons. In many ways, the great temple of Nanna was not just a place of worship. It was a symbol of the rhythms of the universe, a reflection of the natural order that the Sumerians so deeply believed in. But beyond its physical grandeur, the temple's role in Sumerian society is shrouded in mystery. The ziggurat, with its astronomical alignment, seems to suggest that the Sumerians understood more about the stars and celestial bodies than we might give them credit for. Was the temple simply a sacred site for religious rituals, or was it also a cosmic observatory, designed to chart the movements of the heavens and unlock the secrets of the universe? Some scholars have speculated that the temple was aligned with the moon and other celestial bodies, perhaps serving as a tool for tracking lunar cycles or predicting astrological events. But how did the Sumerians possess such advanced knowledge without the aid of modern instruments or technologies? The alignment of the ziggurat with the movements of the stars raises unsettling questions about the true purpose of the Great Temple. If the Sumerians were using the temple to track celestial events, could they have been doing so for reasons other than mere religious observance? Was the temple's architecture designed to harness the energy of the cosmos, channeling the power of the stars and moon into the earthly realm? Could the temple have been more than just a structure for prayer and ritual? Could it have served as a gateway, a threshold between worlds, a conduit for divine energy? One of the most curious aspects of the temple's design is its placement within the city of Ur. It was situated at the center of the city, where it could be seen from almost every corner of the urban sprawl. The ziggurat's towering presence dominated the landscape, and its significance was not just spiritual, but political. The priest-king of Ur, who oversaw the temple and its rituals, was the earthly representative of Nanna, and his authority was believed to be divinely sanctioned. The power of the king was thus tied to the power of the temple, and through his connection to Nanna, the king was able to maintain control over the city-state of Ur. But was this power purely political, or was there something deeper at work? Some researchers have suggested that the power of the great temple of Nanna was not just spiritual or political, but also tied to a more mystical or hidden knowledge that could have been passed down from earlier civilizations. The Sumerians were, after all, among the earliest people to develop writing, mathematics, and astronomy. Their understanding of the cosmos and their ability to predict celestial events was far ahead of their time. Could the great temple of Nanna have been designed as a site for the transmission of this lost knowledge that we may never fully understand? Was the temple a place where the priests and rulers of Ur could tap into the hidden forces of the universe, unlocking secrets that were not meant for the general public? This theory is bolstered by the discovery of ancient Sumerian texts and astronomical tablets, many of which were found in the ruins of Ur. These texts describe the movements of the stars, the planets, and the moon in intricate detail, suggesting that the Sumerians had a deep understanding of the celestial rhythms. Some of these texts also describe rituals and ceremonies performed at the temple, and it is possible that these rites were not just religious, but also meant to tap into the hidden powers of the cosmos. If this is the case, then the great temple of Nanna may have been more than just a place for worship. It may have been a place for the Sumerians to align themselves with the cosmic forces that governed their world. Another intriguing question surrounding the Great Temple is its relationship to the cycles of the moon. Nanna, the moon god, was believed to control the passage of time, and the cycles of the moon were central to Sumerian agriculture, trade, and religious observance. The ziggurat itself was built in such a way that it may have been aligned with the phases of the moon, with specific rituals taking place during key lunar events. Could the temple have been designed as a tool for tracking these cycles, not just for agricultural purposes, but to guide the spiritual and political actions of the city-state? The moon's influence on the tides, the harvests, and even human behavior was well understood by the Sumerians, and it's possible that the temple was a focal point for harnessing this influence. Yet despite all of this, there is still much we do not know about the true purpose of the great temple of Nanna. Was it a purely religious site, or was it also a place where the Sumerians sought to understand the deeper mysteries of the cosmos? Was it a place of cosmic power, where the forces of the stars were believed to interact with the earthly realm? Could the temple have been more than just a symbol of divine authority, and actually served as a focal point for a hidden knowledge that has been lost to time? As we examine the ruins of the great temple of Nanna, we are left to ponder these questions, and to wonder what secrets remain buried beneath the layers of history. What if the temple was more than a religious structure? What if it was, in some way, a key to understanding not just the Sumerians' worldview, but the very forces that shape our universe? In the dim corridors of ancient history, where myth and reality intertwine, there exists a document that challenges our very understanding of time, kingship, and the deep past, the Sumerian king list. This ancient tablet, inscribed with the names of rulers and their purported reigns, is one of the most perplexing texts to survive from the dawn of civilization. It lists the kings of Sumer, detailing the lengths of their reigns, but in a way that defies our conventional understanding of history. Some rulers are said to have reigned for thousands of years, while others come and go in what seems like the blink of an eye. The question remains, how are we to interpret this strange and inconsistent chronology? And what truths might still lie hidden within its enigmatic lines? The Sumerian king list was unearthed in the ruins of ancient Nippur, a city of great spiritual and political importance in Sumer. The tablet itself, carved in cuneiform script, provides a seemingly straightforward list of kings who ruled over Sumer, beginning with the legendary figure of Ululim, who is said to have reigned for 28,800 years. This reign is followed by a succession of kings, some ruling for mere years, others for centuries, and still others for millennia. It's a stark contrast to the reigns of more recent historical figures, where the passage of time is marked by lifetimes and generational change. But what are we to make of this anomaly? At first glance, the Sumerian king list might appear as a simple record of royal succession, a formal list intended to legitimize the dynasties that ruled over Sumer. However, the astonishing lengths of reigns, especially in the earliest entries, invite a deeper investigation. How could anyone, even a king chosen by the gods, live for tens of thousands of years? The idea itself seems fantastical, almost mythical. Yet the Sumerians, with their deep connection to the divine and their sophisticated understanding of cosmology, seem to have accepted this as fact. Was this an exaggeration, a symbolic representation of divine favor, or was there something more to these dates, something we are yet to understand? The Sumerian king list begins with a rather curious assertion. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. Eridu, an ancient city in southern Mesopotamia, is often considered the cradle of Sumerian civilization. The phrase "descended from heaven" implies a divine origin for kingship, a recurring theme in Sumerian thought. Could this be more than a mere symbolic gesture? Could it indicate a time when the gods themselves, or celestial forces, directly intervened in human affairs, shaping the course of history in ways that have been forgotten by later generations? Perhaps the most perplexing part of the king list lies in the reigns of the early rulers. The first few kings are credited with incomprehensible reigns, with Ululim reigning for 28,800 years, followed by his successor, Alalngar, who ruled for another 36,000 years. These reigns are followed by a handful of kings who are said to have ruled for similarly staggering periods, until the timeline begins to shrink and the reigns of later kings become more recognizably human in scale. Could these extraordinary figures represent something more than historical rulers? Some scholars have speculated that these long reigns may have been symbolic of a golden age, an era in which the divine ruled over earth with an eternal and unchanging influence. Perhaps these kings were not meant to be taken literally, but rather as representations of an idealized past, when the gods walked among mortals and time itself was distorted by divine will. The long reigns may have been an expression of the mythic time when the laws of the gods governed every aspect of life. Other interpretations suggest that the Sumerian king list could reflect an ancient understanding of cyclical time. The early kings, who reigned for millennia, might represent an earlier era of the world, an age when the forces of the cosmos were in perfect harmony. Over time, as humanity became more disconnected from the divine, the reigns of kings gradually shortened, reflecting a shift in the relationship between man and the gods. This idea ties into the broader Sumerian worldview, where the passage of time was seen as a series of repeating cycles, both in the heavens and on earth. Could the king list be a record not of historical kings, but of cosmic epics, each one marked by a ruler who embodied the divine order of that time? Yet another theory proposes that the Sumerian king list is a record of more than just Sumerian kings. Perhaps it is a catalog of rulers who predated the Sumerians, or even a list of rulers from an entirely different civilization, one whose knowledge of the heavens and the divine was far more advanced than we can comprehend. Could the kings of Eridu, listed in the king list, have been figures from a lost civilization? Some fringe theories suggest that the kings listed at the beginning of the list might have been rulers from an advanced culture that existed long before the rise of Sumer. These figures, with their otherworldly lifespans, could be echoes of a forgotten age, when ancient wisdom and technology allowed for a deeper connection to the divine. There is also the possibility that the Sumerian king list reflects a different kind of memory, one that records the passing of time in a manner that we no longer fully understand. Could the ancient Sumerians have possessed knowledge of astronomical events, such as the precession of the equinoxes or the movements of distant planets, which caused them to measure time in such vast stretches? Could the king list represent a kind of coded record of these celestial events, each king with their extraordinary reigns marking a cosmic event or shift in the heavens? This theory would imply that the Sumerians were not just recording earthly rulers, but were keeping track of the cycles of the cosmos, perhaps in an attempt to align their own political history with the rhythms of the universe. The mystery of the Sumerian king list lies not just in its seemingly impossible chronology, but also in the questions it raises about how the Sumerians perceived time, kingship, and their relationship with the divine. Was the king list a historical record, a mythological narrative, or a cosmic calendar that encoded deeper truths about the nature of existence? The names of the kings may be lost to time, but the questions they pose continue to resonate. Did these kings really reign for thousands of years, or were they the symbols of an age of gods, where time itself was measured differently? As we ponder the Sumerian king list, we are left to wonder, what knowledge did the Sumerians possess about time, the gods, and the cycles of the universe? Was the king list simply a record of rulers, or was it a cryptic message encoded with wisdom from an ancient past, wisdom that we have yet to fully decipher? As with so many aspects of Sumerian culture, the answers remain elusive, and the mysteries of their kingship may be far deeper than we can ever truly understand. In the ancient land of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carve their way through the desolate plains, towering structures known as ziggurats rose from the earth like mountains of mud and brick. These stepped pyramids, sacred to the Sumerians, were not only feats of engineering and architecture, but also representations of the divine, a link between the heavens and the earth. At the heart of these monumental structures lay a mystery, one that has puzzled archaeologists, astronomers, and historians for generations: the precise alignment of the ziggurats to celestial bodies. Was this alignment merely a product of practical design, or could there have been a deeper, more profound purpose, a hidden knowledge of the stars that the Sumerians sought to encode in their sacred architecture? One of the most famous and well-preserved ziggurats in the ancient world is the Ziggurat of Ur, a towering structure dedicated to the moon god Nanna. Rising some 100 feet above the surrounding landscape, it once boasted 3 stories, each a step closer to the heavens. The ziggurat's base, covering an area larger than a football field, would have been a striking sight in the ancient city of Ur, commanding the attention of all who entered. It was a place where the physical and divine worlds seemed to meet, a space for rituals, offerings, and perhaps divine communing. However, what makes the Ziggurat of Ur and other Sumerian ziggurats particularly fascinating is not just its architectural grandeur, but its apparent alignment with the stars, the sun, and the moon. Modern archaeologists have long been intrigued by the alignment of these structures, as they seem to be meticulously positioned with respect to specific celestial events. Could it be that the Sumerians, with their deep knowledge of the heavens, deliberately constructed their ziggurats in such a way as to align with key astronomical phenomena such as solstices, equinoxes, and lunar phases? In the case of the Ziggurat of Ur, some researchers have suggested that its main axis is aligned with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, according to the movements of the stars. This is not an easy feat, considering the technology available to the Sumerians, who had no telescopes or advanced tools for measuring angles. Yet, the ziggurat's orientation appears to reflect an advanced understanding of the sky. The Sumerians, known for their sophisticated astronomy, might have used the stars to guide their construction. The question then arises: how did they know which stars to align with? Could they have had access to a deeper, possibly forgotten, knowledge of the cosmos? One of the most striking alignments involves the relationship between the ziggurats and the movements of the moon. The moon was a central figure in Sumerian cosmology, and the Ziggurat of Ur, dedicated to the moon god Nanna, may have been positioned to track the moon's cycles. Some studies suggest that the ziggurat's orientation could correspond to the heliacal rising of certain stars, or the phases of the moon, events that would have been of profound importance to the Sumerians, as they used the lunar cycles to mark time, guide agricultural practices, and conduct religious ceremonies. The moon's movements were intricately linked to the Sumerian calendar, and the ziggurat may have served as a kind of celestial observatory, where priests and astronomers could chart these cycles with remarkable precision. This raises another intriguing possibility. Were the Sumerians using the ziggurats as more than just places of worship and political power? Could they have been tools for understanding the larger cosmic order, a way to align human actions with the divine rhythms of the universe? The idea of a cosmic order, or the belief that the movements of the stars and planets could directly influence life on Earth, was central to Sumerian thought. The ziggurats may have been designed not only as religious centers, but as physical manifestations of this divine order, meant to bring earthly affairs in line with the heavens. Beyond the Ziggurat of Ur, the alignment mystery extends to other Sumerian ziggurats and structures throughout Mesopotamia. The Ziggurat of Nippur, for example, which was dedicated to the god Enlil, also seems to have been carefully positioned to align with celestial bodies. Some researchers have pointed out that these structures are consistently aligned with the cardinal directions in ways that would have been difficult to achieve using the rudimentary tools available at the time. Could the Sumerians have possessed knowledge of astronomical principles far ahead of their time? Or could these alignments be mere coincidence, with the ziggurats simply being placed in such a way as to follow the natural contours of the land? The possibility that the ziggurats were aligned with the stars is further complicated by the presence of other ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians, who also built monumental structures with precise astronomical alignments. Some scholars have suggested that these ancient cultures may have shared knowledge of celestial measurements, passed down through generations. However, the similarities in the alignment of the ziggurats and the pyramids have led to even more speculative theories. Could these ancient civilizations have had access to a universal understanding of the heavens, a knowledge that has since been lost to time? The mystery deepens when we consider the possibility that the alignments of the ziggurats were not merely a matter of practical observation, but were also imbued with deeper spiritual significance. The Sumerians were a people profoundly connected to the divine, and their gods were often depicted as celestial beings who controlled the cosmos. The ziggurats, with their towering structures reaching towards the sky, may have symbolized a bridge between the human world and the realm of the gods. The alignment with celestial events may have been seen as a way to align human affairs with the divine will, ensuring that the people of Sumer were living in harmony with the natural and cosmic order. Could these alignments also be connected to something more mystical, perhaps an understanding of sacred geometry or the energetic properties of the earth itself? Some fringe theories suggest that the ziggurats, with their specific alignments, might have been designed to harness cosmic energy, acting as amplifiers or conductors of celestial forces. Could these massive structures have been more than just buildings? They might have been designed to channel the energy of the heavens into the earthly realm, creating a sacred space where the gods could interact with humanity in powerful, unseen ways. While mainstream archaeology tends to focus on the practical aspects of these alignments, such as their use for ritual purposes or the measurement of time, there remains a profound sense of mystery around the true intentions behind the ziggurat alignments. Were these ancient builders simply great observers of the night sky, or was there a hidden, more sophisticated purpose at play? And what can the precise positioning of these structures tell us about the Sumerians' understanding of the cosmos and their place within it? As we continue to examine the mystery of the Sumerian ziggurats, one question lingers in the air. What if the answers to these questions are not just buried in the soil of ancient Mesopotamia, but also encoded in the very design of these awe-inspiring structures? Could there still be secrets hidden within the ziggurats themselves, secrets of a lost knowledge or an understanding of the cosmos that we have yet to fully unlock? The alignment of the ziggurats may be a key to understanding the ancient Sumerian worldview, but it is also a doorway to the unknown, a mystery that continues to defy our expectations and spark our imagination. Amid the ruins of ancient Sumer, in the heart of Mesopotamia, lies an artifact that may hold the key to understanding not just the Sumerian civilization, but the very nature of ancient communication: the Sumerian cylinder seals. These small, intricately carved cylinders, made from materials like stone, clay, and even precious metals, served as both practical tools and objects of art. They were pressed into clay to leave an impression, each seal creating a unique imprint, often depicting scenes of daily life, myth, and ritual. Today, these small objects are revered as masterpieces of ancient craftsmanship, yet they also present an enigma that has puzzled scholars for centuries. The purpose of the cylinder seal was simple enough: to authenticate documents, mark property, or signify ownership. In the ancient world, these seals were a means of marking official business, a way to leave an unmistakable signature. However, the imagery engraved on many of these seals goes far beyond mundane matters of bureaucracy. What is most striking about the cylinder seals is not just their role as administrative tools, but the rich and often mysterious symbolism they contain. As we unroll the images etched into these ancient artifacts, we begin to uncover glimpses into a world that is both familiar and strange, one that challenges our understanding of Sumerian religion, politics, and possibly their very view of the cosmos. One of the most famous cylinder seals, the Seal of Ur, depicts the king of Ur, possibly Ur-Nammu, participating in a ritual that seems to be a communion with divine beings. The imagery is striking. Figures standing before gods, receiving blessings, or even engaging in acts of cosmic creation. The seals often depict scenes that intertwine the divine and the mortal realms, suggesting that the Sumerians did not see these worlds as separate, but as part of a continuous cycle. The artwork on the seals, while beautiful, also carries a hidden message, one that links the physical world to the spiritual, the earthly to the celestial. Yet, beyond these recognizable themes, there are depictions on cylinder seals that remain enigmatic and unsettling. Some seals show figures that seem to defy earthly logic, beings with exaggerated features, strange animal forms, or individuals with multiple heads or arms. Could these be symbolic representations, or are they glimpses of a world that we simply do not understand? What were the Sumerians trying to convey with these images? Were these figures the gods they worshipped, or were they something else entirely? Perhaps beings from a different dimension, or creatures from a forgotten past. One of the most puzzling aspects of the cylinder seals is the recurring presence of unusual, often surreal iconography. For instance, some seals depict what appear to be humanoid figures interacting with animals or even fantastical hybrid creatures. These images sometimes show figures standing in front of large trees, possibly symbolizing the tree of life, a recurring motif in ancient cultures. The presence of such motifs raises the question, were the Sumerians trying to encode a deeper, hidden knowledge in these symbols? Or were these representations more than artistic license? Were they a kind of ancient code, meant to communicate complex ideas to those who could decipher their meaning? One particularly intriguing example of this is the so-called aliens on Sumerian seals theory, which suggests that certain cylinder seals feature beings who bear a striking resemblance to what modern observers might consider alien in appearance. These figures are often depicted as humanoid but with elongated heads or features that seem non-human. Could it be that the Sumerians were attempting to convey encounters with otherworldly beings? Or are these simply artistic representations of gods and mythological creatures? The idea that the Sumerians had contact with extraterrestrial entities is an idea that has fascinated fringe theorists for years, but the interpretation remains speculative at best. What is undeniable, however, is the mystery of these strange figures and what they might have represented to the people who created them. Some scholars suggest that the figures on the seals might actually be depictions of Sumerian gods, whose forms were symbolic rather than literal. The elongated features, the strange proportions, the surreal imagery, all might be understood as stylized representations of the divine, meant to communicate an otherworldly power or presence. In the Sumerian pantheon, gods like Enki, Enlil, and Anu were often depicted in highly symbolic ways, and these figures on the seals might be extensions of that artistic tradition. But if these figures were simply gods, why are they depicted in such an abstract, unfamiliar manner? Could there be an underlying message within these stylized representations that has yet to be unlocked? Even more curious are the seals that seem to depict elaborate rituals or ceremonies involving strange and cryptic symbolism. Some of these scenes show figures being led into large open spaces, perhaps temples, where they are greeted by otherworldly beings or gods. These rituals, though seemingly mundane, may actually contain encoded knowledge. The precision of the imagery, the careful placement of figures, and the repetitive nature of certain symbols suggest that these images may not simply be artistic expressions, but could be communicating a much deeper narrative. Could they be illustrating a cosmic event, a spiritual journey, or a ritual designed to connect the human world to the divine in a very specific way? The patterns of these seals, especially their repetition of specific motifs, suggest that the Sumerians were working within a carefully constructed symbolic system. Some researchers argue that the seals may have functioned as a kind of religious or cosmic map, showing the interactions between humans, gods, and celestial forces. This idea is further supported by the fact that many of the seals are believed to have been used in religious contexts, suggesting that they were meant to serve as visual reminders of sacred teachings. But what could this deeper, hidden knowledge have been? Was it a form of celestial wisdom encoded into the seals to be passed down through the generations? Or were they communicating something even more fundamental about the nature of reality? The symbols on the cylinder seals are not just limited to gods and humans. Some seals depict enigmatic creatures that do not fit neatly into any known category. Hybrid beings with the bodies of humans and the heads of animals, or creatures that appear to be part human, part insect. These representations suggest that the Sumerians had a much more complex view of life, the divine, and the natural world than we might have imagined. Were these creatures merely mythological figures, or were they representations of beings from a different world, a world the Sumerians knew of, but one that we have lost touch with? As we examine the cylinder seals, we are left to wonder, what knowledge were the Sumerians encoding in these intricate designs? Were they merely illustrating gods and myths, or were they conveying deeper, more profound truths about the universe, about time, space, and perhaps even life beyond Earth? Each seal is a doorway, offering us a glimpse into a civilization that was far more complex and enigmatic than we often give them credit for. But as we continue to uncover the secrets hidden in their art, we find that the answers remain just beyond our grasp, inviting us to look deeper, to question what we think we know, and to wonder, what truths are still waiting to be discovered?